Hi, and welcome to the Us Kids These Days, supported by the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. We're your hosts,
Evelyn Derrer,
Annalise Janke,
Mustafaa Munir,
and Pete Freeman.
So today we're going to be talking about our previous actions we did this summer before the school year started and interviewing people from around the world. So
we since this is our first episode, we really wanted to give you guys an idea of what the Youth Action Hub is, what we're about, and so we wanted to bring that to a global scale and look at what hubs are doing around the world.
The Youth Action Hub is an opportunity to get the youth voices out there, especially in relations to UNCTAD, and being able to get our voices heard and connect with the UN in this new way, a new outlet that hasn't been available before. There are 30 hubs in over 30 different countries, youth doing things like us all getting started, finding out what this can be and what activities we can learn and projects we can work on to bring the global local and help us to bring the local global.
Yeah, so this podcast is one of our projects that we're doing, and then we're also going to try to kind of get our voices heard with UNCTAD and interact a little bit more in that sense.
And one thing that we all think is important is that interaction between local and international aspects, because things that happen locally on a larger scale with many local organizations will affect international policy.
Looking at some of the interviews that we did over the summer where we connected with
finding out what their hubs are doing and
around the world,
that many of them are in the same
we asked them
place that we are,
questions, some of them were just general questions like name, age, country, and then we started asking more Youth Action Hub specific questions. What are they focusing on right now? And then we also talked about their specific country and community, what they feel like the world gets wrong about their country or community, what they want the world to know about their country or community. Then we talked a little bit about the UN and what they're missing without youth perspectives, and also what could the UN do right now to act on issues that are really pressing for us right now.
So my first interview was with the coordinator of the Swiss branch of the Youth Action Hub system, which was Marina Kalin, and her Youth Action Hub is actually really small, and it makes sense. In Switzerland's a small country, they only have 3 people, including her. So only one less than us, but it makes more sense for them.
It does make more sense for them than it does for us.
For them, they're focused right now on the gender pay gap in the country and then environmental protections. And it's interesting to note that their objective is due to where they are, and their pressing issues are different than what our issues will be as living in the United States. It's just the perspective issue about how your local perspectives and local experiences will affect what you're most passionate about on the international level. So, and then one thing about Switzerland is that, a lot of people always love to throw around the stereotype that Switzerland is the neutral country and like war, they're always just there. But what Marina told me was that Swiss people and Switzerland in general, that they're just resistant to change, and they aren't really neutral. They just have a harder time coping with the change. And that's something you find all over the world in different aspects. In the United States, it was hard for people to get accepting of different races. It's still an issue today, even more so than issues sexuality, gender identity, whatnot in our country, but it's slowly getting there. First, you start local. For example, our school board recently had a controversy with a policy issue with an anti-discrimination statement, but because of people campaigning for that change, they eventually got there. So, my interviewee believed that the UN was missing a youth perspective in many of its branches, and without this one being counted, the UNCTAD's Youth Action Hub, most other areas of the UN are just taken up by government officials. So the General Assembly, International Court of Justice, and those are the head honchos of the UN branches, but they do not have youth perspectives at all. It's hard even for governmental officials at a state or local level to get their perspectives onto the national UN, let alone us living as teenagers in just one of the many states in our country. And the last thing that she believes is that youth are the future of the world, and it's important for those youth to be put into play as early as possible, because if you get people involved early on, it helps them to build that habit of getting involved. And it's the whole concept of if you vote early, you vote again and again because you form that habit. So getting youth involved will make sure that our future generation of government officials are going to be strong and not just
In addition to the aforementioned hub coordinators and hub members, we also interviewed Linda Okero, a 29-year-old hub coordinator from Kenya. Linda believes in UNCTAD's mandate, and she participates and helped found this hub because she firmly believes in moving from goals to action. That's something that she made very clear during her interview. She articulated that young people are tired of being the second or even third priority and tired of waiting for opportunities when in fact young people can create the opportunities. Let's take a listen to some of Linda's interview.
The reason why I joined the Youth Action Hub Kenya, an initiative by UNCTAD, is because I believe in the mandate that UNCTAD stands for and has for young people across the globe. The narrative is that Kenya and the youth in Kenya are a problem to be solved.
Linda also communicated her desire to integrate youth in every step of political decision-making processes. Linda says that while young people don't know it all, they certainly don't need to. Young people represent a body of knowledge and can participate and offer things in ways that other age groups might not be able to in the same way. Let's take another listen to what Linda had to say to us.
We are the solution to what Africa and the globe needs. At this point, institutions like the UN really need to set the standard. They need to show the world that, hey, it is time we wake up to the reality on the ground. When we talk about policy making, when we talk about the opportunities that are out there, we need to integrate the young guys in every step of the process, in every step of the system. They need to be part of the decision making and they need to be the decision makers. That narrative, at the end of the day, if we keep on thinking and looking at them at a solution that needs to be solved tomorrow or a capacity that needs to be built for tomorrow, we will forget the today. And today is the most important thing to focus on. Today is the time that we can be able to breed the kind of leaders that we want for tomorrow. And therefore, as a young female, as an African female who is looking at ways and mechanisms and platforms to encourage young guys to actually not give up on their dreams, not give up on their aspirations, I really call upon all state and non-state actors, let us rally up. Let us get tired of the narrative. Let us say enough is enough.
We also spoke with Raphael, the 26-year-old hub coordinator from Tanzania. Raphael articulated that his hub and his group works with or has worked with the United Nations in Tanzania in the past toward International Youth Day and to coordinate events marking that day. Let's take a listen.
So I wanted to start a Youth Action Hub in Dar es Salaam because Dar es Salaam is Tanzania's commercial hub and it is one of the fastest growing cities on the African continent. In fact, it is currently the largest city in East Africa by population and land area. Tanzania being an African country, and I believe this is something which very many African countries suffer. There is a kind of negative attitude. I think people have this built-in stereotypes, these beliefs which they hold on to, that Africa is this dark continent where corruption is endemic, power blackouts, disease. Well, I would like for that to change and for people to give Africa a chance, people to come and invest in Africa. We have an ever increasing middle class population. We have infrastructure is getting better and better by the day. So we need Africa to be the next China, the next top investment destination in the world.
Raphael emphasized his interest in asking the following question. He poses this: are young people able to access United Nations opportunities? And if so, to what extent? Let's listen in.
Well, the United Nations has very many resolutions, very many initiatives which are meant to support young people. But one thing we need to look at is, yes, you have created the opportunity, but are young people able to access this opportunity? The UN could look at that. For example, having scholarships and funding programs that can enable young people, either individually or through associations. The United Nations or any other organization for that matter will risk looking like an aloof organization which is out of touch with realities on the ground. They lose the ability to make or to become relevant to a huge or significant part of the population, which is young people. So I think there is a very, very dire need for more to be done in engaging young people in UN initiatives, because most of the initiatives are supposed to help make a better world, and you cannot make a better world without youth.
One of my interviews was with a man named Daniele. He is 26. He lives in Italy. He's the coordinator for the Italy branch of the Youth Action Hub. So he would believe very strongly that youth should be more represented and present in current issues. He mentioned, he was talking about how right now the UN is focused on, in my notes I wrote it down as older people issues.
Well, now we are focusing on basically two major things. The first one is all about the recruiting part, because until now we're like 10 to 12 people that are really involved, and we are also about to expand our up to 20 people. But also the people that are actually working in my hub are developing this event that will be based in Florence. And the main topic will be the SDG number 13, which is the climate change, or something like we need to do the climate action. And we are developing this event in partnership but also collaboration with other Italian NGOs. The focus of the United Nations, according to the youth part, is creating more programs, more that can also engage youth people in order to collaborate with each other, but also to spread ideas and try to fix these issues. I mean, on the worldwide.
All right, so my final interview, I interviewed, the way she told me to pronounce it was Eugenia, and she is from Ecuador. And she was 28, and one of the first things she told me was that she is a citizen of the world, which I loved, and she really stressed that, so I wanted to put that in the podcast.
In Ecuador, we have two lines of action right now. The first is creating a strong community of youth, and this is of youth, but not only of youth, but only on youth really willing to take action on SDGs for a digital economy. So what we call it is, we are youth, we are the main actors for the digital era. We are the disruptive actors for the digital era. This is our motto, this is our message to everyone. And the first phase, the first part is to create events to involve youth. So we have different kind of events. One event is the Youth O'Clock. We kind of activate the ecosystem for entrepreneurs. And we go to different incubators, accelerators, and we try to find these youth entrepreneurs that really created something great out of nothing, out of scratch, and we try to deploy these stories to the world. This is what kind of events. The other kind of events is more to be more involvement in the policy making. So we have this kind of conferences in which youth come and they do workshops, they discuss some drafts for policies.
As far as what her hub was focused on right now, there was less of a focus on things like climate change and more providing avenues for the youth of Ecuador to be able to provide for themselves and to feel like they have opportunities to thrive.
So what we're trying to create is small projects in communities, so not to be centralized in the city, but to get out and to do something for the real youth that are having issues. So what we're trying to create is a program for involuntary basis to allow youth to be more involved with communities and to promote this disruptive idea. By trying, like the UN, by promoting this idea of youth involvement, what really they are doing is just like boosting youth to like try to create an international profile, but not really committing them to act on the local level, which is what we really need, what we desperately need.
As far as the UN, what can the UN do better? She believed that UNCTAD was actually not missing anything, but she really wanted to improve the funding for hubs and making this more of a UN-wide thing, not just with one conference specifically.
I think it's important to note, like, from your interviewee, is that, you know, where you're from and with those local perspectives changes what you're passionate about. So a lot of these, like, people from European countries, because European countries are fortunately very endowed compared to other countries, and Ecuador isn't considered a first world country compared to other nations. So what her perspectives about impoverished children and whatnot are passion to her. Completely valid perspective. I agree with her on getting those out there. So that local action will obviously be, you know, drives and whatnot to help them directly, but also internationally to get the infrastructure changed from top down. But that bottom-up change is where that personality comes in, with your local perspective. So it's where that connection needs to be drawn from top down, bottom up. That'll get us to where we need to get to go.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in this week and listening. We will be back at some point in time.
Undecided at the moment.
Yep, we'll get back to you on that. We'll link it somewhere related to this podcast.
Yeah, and just a final disclaimer, these views are entirely our own and the interviewees, and even then the interviewees aren't necessarily fully represented because they're through a secondary source, which is us, and they don't represent the views of UNCTAD as a whole.